Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. So we are discussing the finance bill today. So I want to start by dispelling one jumla which is being carried on since about 7-8 o'clock this morning, sir. So today the government has announced a cut in excise duties on petrol and diesel. Obviously, sir, with crude oil prices rising the way they are, with all the tension in West Asia, it was quite expected that, the prices of crude oil will go up, and they've gone up very highly, sir. Some ministers of this government since the morning, and I'm sure a lot of speakers today will also talk about how the Modi government is taking a hit to its own resources, to its own revenues, instead of increasing petrol and diesel prices. So I'll tell you why this is happening, sir. So this is happening because 4 major states are going into elections, sir. The only reason that this excise duty cut has been done today is because this government absolutely cannot raise fuel prices when 4 major states are going into elections. So if this government really cared about the welfare of people so much and on not burdening people with prices, so for the last 4 years, sir, the government was purchasing crude oil at extremely discounted prices. Below $60 per barrel, we were purchasing discounted crude from Russia, sir. So in these 4 years, this benefit of discounted crude oil purchased from Russia, not a single rupee was passed on to the consumer at the petrol and diesel pump. So for 4 years, we were buying discounted crude oil. The government was not incurring any additional. In fact, the government was saving money, but none of these savings were passed on to the consumers. Therefore, sir, when the Honorable Finance Minister replies, I only have one request from her. Will she give a commitment on the floor of this House that after 29th of April, when the voting is completed in all 4 states, the government will promise that it will not increase the petrol and diesel prices at fuel pumps even by 1 rupee. That is the commitment that the Finance Minister should give today, that this excise duty is permanent. We are not going to raise prices after 29th of April. They should do that. The problem, sir, is that this government does not think about people. They only think about elections. Why is one nation, one election such a bad idea? Because regular elections make them care a little bit about people, sir. The reason they want one nation, one election is that once the elections are done, for 5 years they can keep looting the people as much as they want without any checks and balances. So the finance bill, very surprisingly, and the budget, sir, entirely failed to grasp the winds of change that have been going around the world since the last 2 years, sir. So I'll quote the Honorable Finance Minister from a budget speech. She said, today we face an external environment in which trade and multilateralism are imperiled and access to resources and supply chains are disrupted. So clearly, sir, when she gave a budget speech, the Honorable Finance Minister was aware of global cues. But that was limited to mere rhetoric, sir, when it actually came to what was presented to Parliament. So the economic survey which came 2 days before was even more candid, sir. The economic survey said geopolitical fragmentation, commodity price volatility, and disrupted logistics are major risks to the Indian economy. Yet, sir, nothing was done by this government to hedge the economy and protect us from risks in all the financial papers that have been presented after that. So the entire budget was designed assuming that oil prices will remain at between $65 to $70 per barrel. So the situation in West Asia did not happen suddenly. Iran had been invaded earlier as well. There has been blockade by the Houthis in the Strait of Hormuz. So it's not something that was unpredictable or caught us unaware, sir. This tension in West Asia has been going on for a fair bit of time, sir. So Prime Minister Modi interestingly visited Israel 2 days before the bombing of Iran started. So now there is a question, sir. Did the Israelis inform Prime Minister Modi during his visit that after 2 days we are going to start bombing Iran? If they did not, sir, this is deceit of the highest order. Prime Minister Modi calls himself a Vishwaguru. He is visiting Israel. They did not even tell him they're planning to bomb Iran after 2 days. There is another possibility, sir, that the Israelis did inform Prime Minister Modi that, yes, Mr. Modi, in 2 days we are going to start bombing Iran.
How can they will?
In that case, sir, no, maybe there are only 2 possibilities. So it can either be east or it can be west. So the question then is, why was the narrative after Prime Minister Modi came back about some shiny medal that was given to him in Israel and not about the impending attack on Iran? When Prime Minister Modi came back from Israel, if he was informed of the attack on Iran, Why did he not start building up India's petroleum reserves? Why did he not start looking at how the LPG crisis might affect the country? Why was this country only talking about a fake medal that was given in Israel, and that was the only narrative that was going on, sir, at that point? And now suddenly after the budget, now suddenly the government's waking up, they're holding closed-door conference meetings with parties, they're not discussing in parliament, a suo motu statement is made without any questions, and then you're saying you're going to meet chief ministers. Parliament is in session. Where is the transparency, sir? First you were caught sleeping, and now you want to discuss everything in a closed room. Sunshine is the best disinfectant. Come to Parliament and discuss the West Asia crisis. Sir, some facts, some hard facts, sir. This is beyond politics, sir. India roughly imports about 88 to 90% of our crude oil requirement. So with the current rise in oil prices, sir, India's import bill is going to rise by 4 to 6 lakh crore rupees, sir. Fiscal deficit, the honorable member before me was talking about. This one data point, sir, you can imagine what difference it is going to have in India's fiscal deficit, sir. So coming to LPG, you know what is interesting, sir? The LPG subsidy allocation in this budget, in this year's budget, sir, has been cut by 27% from last year. Cut down by 27%. So interestingly, last year, when LPG subsidy budget allocation was done, the revised estimate, sir, was 66% higher than the budget estimate. The revised estimate, sir, was 66% higher than the budget estimate, which means this is way before any war started. Even at that point, the government realized, no, we have to spend more on LPG subsidies because that is a problem that the poor and the vulnerable are facing. 66% increase from budget estimate to revised estimate. And now with all the tension happening in West Asia, this year they've decided to cut the LPG allocation by 27%, the subsidy, sir. So the government has budgeted no money to help the poor and middle classes of this country when it comes to LPG. In fact, LPG cylinder prices were hiked by 60 rupees overnight. Today they're talking excise card. We want to protect the people. Pradhan Mantri Modi is going to break his fixed deposit and pay all this money from his pocket. Why were LPG prices increased by 60 rupees, sir? Why was the burden put on the consumer? Why couldn't the government absorb that? Problem is, sir, elections are coming. They don't have an option today but to absorb it. 29th April onwards, fuel prices are going to go up at the pumps. So the total fuel and petroleum subsidy in a country like India, sir, amounts to 2.6% of the total subsidy bill, sir. Of our entire subsidy bill in a country that imports 88% of crude, only 2.6% is allocated in the total subsidy for fuel and petroleum. Oil prices are historically high. Rupee has gone below 93. Our import bill is going up. Oil is more expensive. But the government is saying, आप आत्मनिर्भर बनो. LPG नहीं है, आप चूल्हा पे खाना बनाओ, आप आत्मनिर्भर बनो. Sir, petroleum reserves we were talking about. So this year the government slashed the strategic petroleum reserve allocation by 97%, sir. 97%. Even last year, sir, what was the total allocation for strategic petroleum reserve last year? The allocation was 6,000 crore. How much did we spend, sir? We spent only 1,000 crores. So only 70% of the budgeted amount was spent on strategic petroleum reserves last year, sir. Because of that, what is the state of the strategic petroleum reserve today? Let's be very clear about it. These are numbers. So currently we have 5.33 million metric tons across 3 facilities. 3 facilities in India, 5.33 lakh metric tons, sir. So these 3 sites are not at 100% capacity. They're only filled up to 64% of their total storage capacity. So this means that the government by itself, excluding the government itself, has only 9 days of crude oil supply left in its reserves, sir. 9 days of crude oil supply is all we have. So if we count the commercial storage of OMCs, we only have 74 days of storage capacity left with us. 74. Let's compare that with other oil importing countries, sir. Japan, 254 days of reserves. South Korea, 208 days of reserves. China, 200 days of strategic oil reserves. India, only 74 days of reserves, sir. So when the finance minister was replying in the Lok Sabha on the finance bill, obviously elections are coming. Everyone wants to show they care about Bengal after not caring about it for 5 years. Suddenly there's a renewed interest. But I have to appreciate something, sir. As a fellow student of Bangla, I appreciate that the finance minister tried to speak one sentence in Bangla during her speech. While it was to attack us, that's a different story altogether, but she attempted, sir. So I'm also someone who's been learning Bangla, sir. I haven't had a chance to speak in Bangla here for the last 2.5 years because I've also been practicing learning. But I'm delighted that the Honorable Finance Minister now is also a fellow learner of Bangla like me. The difference, sir, is she unfortunately and her party will never get a chance to represent Bengal here. Our party does, but that's a different story. So as a part of my learning of Bangla that has happened, sir, there is a few lines I wish to share with the Honorable Finance Minister which will enrich both of our knowledge, sir. So the first one, Banglar Manushe, and I apologize for my pronunciation, I'm a learner. The Finance Minister might be learning faster than I am. বাংলার মানুষে ন্যায্য প্রাপ্ত 2 লাখ কোটি টাকারও বেশি অর্থ আটকে রাখে তাদের বঞ্চিত করেছে কেন্দ্রীয় সরকার. Translation, sir. The union government has deprived the people of West Bengal by withholding over rupees 2 lakh crores of our legitimate dues. Second, sir. আসন্ন নির্বাচনে বিজেপির হার নিশ্চিত. এটা বুঝতে পেরেই কেন্দ্রীয় সরকার বাংলায় এক প্রকার অঘোষিত জরুরি অবস্থা জারি করেছে. The union government has imposed an undeclared emergency in West Bengal because the BJP knows they're losing the upcoming state elections. So third, কেন্দ্রীয় সরকার দেশে জ্বালানি ও এলপিজির সংকট আড়াল করার চেষ্টা করছে. The union government is hiding the fuel and LPG crisis that is engulfing the entire country. And the fourth one, sir, very important. It's my favorite one, sir. আগামী 4 মে মমতা বন্দ্যোপাধ্যায় চতুর্থবারের জন্য বাংলার মুখ্যমন্ত্রী হবেন. On the 4th of May, sir, Mamata Banerjee, whether they like it or hate it, doesn't matter, will become the Chief Minister of Bengal for a historic 4th term. Thank you, sir. Jai Hind, Jai Bangla.
You take remaining, no problem.
The speaker did not speak for 19 minutes. There's a small mistake in the timing that may be corrected. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Sriman P. Wilson.
Thank you, Vice Chairman, sir. I'm happy to see you in the seat today. This government came to power promising Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. What we have today, a regime of Sabka Boj, Sirf Unka Vikas, which means burden on the many, the benefits for the chosen few. This government functioning with slogans and budget is equally full of slogans. Let me demonstrate with unemployment, which is styled as Yuva Shakti-driven budget. India today is facing an unemployment crisis. What is more shocking is that 83% of our unemployed population is youth. According to the Indian Employment Report 2024, jointly published by the International Labour Organization and Institute of Human Development, a 2026 report titled State of Working India finds that graduate unemployment among the age group up to 29 years remained high, nearly 40%. Vice Chairman, sir, that means 4 out of every 10 educated young Indians are jobless. And what does this finance bill offer them? Slogans like Yuva Shakti. But slogans do not create jobs. There is no national employment guarantee for the urban youth. No national employment guarantee for the urban youth. No enforceable job creation framework. No meaningful protection for the gig workers and the unorganized sector, which employs over 90% of the India's workforce. No universal social security. Vice Chairman, sir, inequality in India, that is, I'm meaning inequality in India, has reached unacceptable levels. According to the World Inequality Report 2026, the top 10% capture 58% of the national income and hold 65% of the total wealth. Meanwhile, the bottom 50%, over 70 crore Indians, are left with just 15% of the income and a mere 6% of wealth. Only yesterday I saw a post on the social media that one industrialist, Ambani, wealth increased to 500% since 2014 and Adani wealth over 1000%. But India fell from 52nd position to the 102 position in the global hunger strike. Sir, I am not against Indian businesses and large corporations doing well. In fact, economic growth is driven by growth of Indian industry. But the question is income inequality and the government's apathy towards the middle and lower economic class of the society. So what does this finance bill do to address income inequality and help those in dire need? Nothing. Does it tax the super rich? Does it introduce a wealth tax, an inheritance tax? Does it even attempt redistribution? No. Instead, it hands out concessions to corporations, minimum alternate tax reduced to 14%, SEZ tax holidays extended to 20 years, safe harbor margins for data centers fixed at 15%, and massive incentives for the capital-intensive sectors like semiconductors, rare earths, and electronics sectors dominated by a handful of corporate giants. In fact, welfare expenditure has been slashed by 59,456 crores compared to the last year. The gender budget alone have been cut by 51,144 rupees crore. Schemes that sustain the poor, Manrega, PMAY, PMJAY, PM Poshan, crop insurance are being short-changed. Sir, the only welfare economics that comes to the mind of the union government is direct cash transfer in BJP-headed and electoral alliance parties ruled states heading for elections. That also only before election. After election, there is no thought of achieving a universal basic income. Fertilizer subsidies are down, food subsidies are reduced, fuel subsidies is shrinking. You are taking away the lifeline of the poor to fatten the balance sheets of billionaires. What steps are taken for addressing LPG scarcity? India is today one of the largest consumers of LPG in the world, with annual consumption of approximately 31 million tons. But our national storage capacity barely covers 3 to 4 weeks of consumption, and strategic reserves are extremely limited. Nearly 60 to 67% of LPG is imported, mostly from West Asia through the Strait of Hormuz, making India highly vulnerable to geopolitical disruption. This is largely because the government has failed to diversify energy sources efficiently. The government has also been slow in building the necessary natural gas infrastructure, such as the pipelines and terminals, which has hindered the goal of a gas-based economy. For example, the Kochi LNG terminal has been underutilized for years. Recently, the government has also announced that those with PNG access but has not availed, it will be cut off from LPG. Sir, this is highly draconian. There may be many reasons, including high cost and technical feasibility, for not switching over. We must encourage and allow these transition gently and over a period of time, not force and immediate. Is there any provision in the budget to address this West Asia global tensions? No. For middle class, there is no structural tax relief. There is no encouragement for their savings or frank disclosure of income. Instead, what we see is a dangerous expansion of powers. Tax authorities can now reopen past assessment without any limitations, even in closed cases. This is a tax terrorism with legal backing. Sir, in my speech on the budget proposal, I highlighted how there is no relief for the relentless red tape in the tax administration. Nothing has been done in this bill to provide relief from that. Sir, still there is no legal guarantee of MSP for farmers, no comprehensive agriculture reform addressing debt, climate risk or price instability. Farmers continue to suffer, suicides continue, and the government looks away. Sir, I want to take this opportunity to highlight a growing trend of monopolies in key sectors like defense, energy, ports and airports. This is against the national interest. I want to say that in the last few years, the government of India has issued a directive to all coal-based thermal plants to procure coal on pass-through basis in separation of the terms of the power purchase agreement. This has been skyrocketing of price of electricity purchased by the DISCOMs, which is ultimately passed on to the consumers. I hope the government takes a complete audit of the financial distress caused by these pass-through directions under Section 11 of the Electricity Act and comes up with a plan to counter high cost of imported coal in the future without issuing ad hoc directions like this. The government claims fiscal prudence with a 4.3% fiscal deficit target, but this cannot be achieved by cutting welfare, squeezing subsidies and shifting the burden into poor. Meanwhile, India's debt to GDP stands at 55.6%, and the interest payments consume nearly 20% of the total expenditure. Gross tax revenue growth is a modest of 8%. GST collections are stagnating. Consumption demand is weakening. Even UPI growth is slowing. Clear signals of an economy losing momentum. We see tax holidays for IFSC units extended to 20 years, duty exemptions for critical minerals, incentives for data centers, and an infrastructure risk guarantee fund, a mechanism where profits are privatized and risks are socialized. This is a crony capitalism at its worst. Chairman, sir, the government may speak of 3.2% of inflation, but I request the Honorable Finance Minister to step outside the House and see the real India. An engineering graduate drives a cab. A farmer borrows for seeds. A small business shut down quietly. A family cut proteins from its diet. Graduates are jobless. Growth is being announced, but where is the result? You promised 2 crores job will be created every year. It has been 12 years. Where are the 24 crores job created? You promised doubling farmers' income. Where is that income? Ask any family about actual food prices, fuel costs, school fees, cost of transport. They are struggling to make ends. The real inflation in the hands of the people of this country is around 10 to 15%. Now let's come to the tax burden. Direct taxes grow by 11.4%. Indirect taxes grow by 3%. Indirect taxes are paid by the common people when they buy soap, buy groceries, buy clothes, recharge mobile, buy school notebooks, and all other essential commodities. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar spoke, indirect taxation falls upon the poor man, whether he can afford it or not. A billionaire pays GST, a construction worker pays GST. Same tax, same rate, but the pain is different. The rich feel taxation in spreadsheets. The poor feel taxation in groceries. A middle-class mother does not track fiscal deficit. She tracks the price of the rice and the onion. This budget shows that the union government has failed to fix the